Hey, what's up you guys? Today I'm doing my January wrap up and it's already like way past the middle of February, so I apologise. I hate not uploading my wrap ups on like the first or second of the month, like literally the third at the latest, but I've just been really busy in February with work and socializing and stuff, so yeah, I'm apologising right now, but I'm excited to talk about my January books. I had a really good reading month. I started the month off really strong, some really great reads, and I'm excited to talk about them today. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and please subscribe for more videos, hopefully more than we've had in February, but we're moving on. And yeah, definitely leave a comment, let me know any of your thoughts on any of the books I talk about in this video, and let's get started. So I started January by finishing off the Harry Potter series. I read Order of the Phoenix, Half-Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows in January, and I loved them all. I gave them all 5 stars. I am still in such a Harry Potter like phase of my life. I feel like it's one of those things that it comes and goes, like you have periods of being obsessed with it and then you don't think about it for a while and then it comes back, and right now I'm really back in it. Definitely on the, latter end of the obsession, because I've finished all the books, I've finished all the movies. I'm going to Warner Brothers Studio Tour for my birthday in March, so check out that vlog when it comes. I'm very excited for that. But yeah, I don't even need to talk about Harry Potter, to be honest. I just love it. I loved all the characters. I loved, a lot of nuances. I picked up on so many little things this time, like little bits of foreshadowing and stuff like that, that I didn't read the first time, because I actually realised that, I think I said this in my December wrap up, but I hadn't actually read the Harry Potter books from start to finish in over a decade. I don't think I'd done it since Deathly Hallows came out, and even then, I can't really remember that far back in my life. So I'm not sure if I ever actually read like books 1 to book 7 like back to back pretty much ever. So it was really fun to do it. I really loved it. I definitely will do it again in a couple of years' time, and it's just one of those stories that you can just keep going back to over and over again. So yeah, so glad I started the year off with Harry Potter, and let's move on. So the next book I read was Pale Fire by Vladimir Nabokov, and this is a classic that is one of the most unique books I've ever read, because it is written in such a unique way. So first of all, you have this poem which is by a fictional author, and then you have a foreword and notes on the poem by a different fictional author, and it is kind of psychological. It's very analytical. You really need to flick back and forth. You're reading the poem, then you're reading the notes, and you're trying to work out what the actual truth is, because the person doing the notes is an unreliable narrator, which obviously Nabokov does so well. Lolita is another one with an unreliable narrator, and you're just trying to work out what is actually real that he's saying. So he's kind of talking about the actual poem, but he's relating so much of the poem to his own life, but then a lot of what he's saying about his own life doesn't really seem true. And you're trying to work out, he is saying, for example, that he is best friends with the author of the poem, but then as things continue in the way that he describes events and stuff like that, you're like, were you friends with him, or were you just obsessed with him? And this is the final piece of your obsession, taking over his poem and relating it all to you and making his poetry about your life. And it's such a unique, interesting book that I definitely would not recommend to everyone. It's one that is very challenging, I would say. It's one that you have to really think about before you go into. I am not doing it justice right now. I would look up, maybe even just the Wikipedia page, and really take a look at what the book is, because it's laid out in such a unique way. It's just a really interesting format. So it's definitely not an easy read. You have to put a lot of work into it. You have to use a lot of brain power and a lot of physical flicking back and forth. But I think it was really worth it. I did really enjoy it. Don't think I'll ever read it again, although I think actually it might be easier to read now that I know what to expect. But yeah, it was an interesting one anyway, and I'm glad I gave it a chance. So then I read another Russian author. I read Fathers and Sons by Ivan Turgenev. I looked up a pronunciation guide and that's what it gave me. I apologise if that's not right. But this is a classic again, all about nihilism, which is a philosophy, I guess, or a train of thought. I don't really know. I think you would call it a philosophy that is very bleak, and it's all about how life basically has no meaning and nothing in life matters. And I read this as part of Jennifer Brooks' book club, and we had some interesting discussions in her little Discord chat. And basically the plot is that it's about these two sons who are following, the thought of nihilism, and they're discussing it with their fathers, and it's about generational differences. And the fathers think that the sons are being quite selfish and irresponsible with this train of thought, and that they really need to reevaluate how they perceive the world. And then the sons are like, you know, you're old, you're set in your ways, like you're old fashioned, this is the future, like this is how young people think. And it was interesting in that sense, but I can't say I really enjoyed it. I think that the characters themselves weren't characters, they were more just devices for the author to discuss his philosophy and, you know, have this philosophical discussion, which is interesting, but I don't think the characters stand on their own right as characters, and I don't think the plot without the nihilism discussion really has anything to give. It basically is just a vehicle to have this discussion about philosophy, and I don't know if I like that, to be honest. I'm not really a philosophical person. I can't even pronounce that. I find it mildly interesting. Like, obviously, like I do like finding out how other people think about the world and perceive the world and stuff like that. But in terms of like this classic, like this book, I can't say I really enjoyed it. So it was interesting. Wouldn't really recommend it unless you are someone that really does care about philosophy. And you know, I actually did agree with the fathers, which was interesting. I thought that the whole nihilism concept, like obviously I was doing a lot of my own reading on the side, like on Wikipedia and different articles, because I really couldn't wrap my head around what it was. Like I even was on like the simple Wikipedia, which is like Wikipedia for like kids, and I was like, I still don't really understand like this whole idea. And even now, like I feel like I don't really get it, but I think I do agree with the fathers. I think it was quite a selfish way of viewing the world and irresponsible even. I don't know, it's very complicated, but yeah, it definitely was a book that gave me a lot of, you know, things to research and think about, so it was thought-provoking, but I can't say I enjoyed it. So then after those like really heavy books, I was like, okay, I need a little break. So I read The Story of Tracey Baker by Jacqueline Wilson. If you live in the UK, I think it may be outside of the UK as well, but basically Jacqueline Wilson is like the queen of, you know, children's literature in the UK, and Tracey Baker is a classic story about a girl who lives in a care home, which she calls the dumping ground, and it's just about her life there and her, you know, getting through different situations with, you know, foster parents and, you know, this desire to find a real family, but then also, you know, like wanting her real mum to come back. And, you know, she has all these delusions, I guess, and just like fantasies about her mum coming to save her and take her away and take her to Hollywood and all this stuff. And then it's quite bleak actually in reality, like her in this care home where she does have a really good support system and you know, nice people around her in terms of the adults, but then the kids aren't the nicest, you know, they're typical kids and like they're very realistic. I think like they do bully each other, they do tease each other, they aren't the nicest to each other because they're in this horrible situation of being in, you know, a care home. So I just really loved it. I read it in like one sitting because it is like a kid's book, but I think it really held up well to, you know, my memory. Like Tracey Baker as a character is like one of the most iconic, like I would say, you know, kids literature characters in the UK, especially because of the TV show, which, you know, different iterations of the TV show, there's been so many sequels and stuff, have been on since like, I don't even know when, like, as long as I can remember, like Tracey Baker was on TV, and even now, like, it's still on, but now she is a mum with a child, and, you know, it's just one of those, like, legacy characters that I think is amazing. So I really enjoyed it. I do want to read more Jacqueline Wilson books. I loved them when I was younger, and it was really nice to just like dip my toes back in that world, and I really, you know, definitely want to read more in the future because it was just fun, you know, as a break, apart from like to get away from all these Russian classics like about philosophy and like literary merit and stuff like that. So next I'm going to talk about Beloved by Toni Morrison, and I am really, really sad about this, but I did not like this book, and I think, to be honest, it was my fault. I listened to this on audiobook, and the way the book is written, it's basically just 3 large chapters, but within, like, you know, the story, it's constantly switching like time periods and perspective, and it just jumps around a lot, and it was really hard to follow what was going on an audiobook, especially because there wasn't like no chapters you could really end on, so I was just having to turn it off at a random point, you know, when I was like finished driving, and then come back to it the next day, and I was like, what's going on, where am I, like, am I in the 1800s, am I in the early 1900s, like, I really did struggle with it, and I haven't even explained what it's about, because I don't really, like, it's all about, you know, black trauma, and, you know, the effects of slavery on black people in the, like, post-slavery world in the South, and it was all about, you know, like mother-daughter relationships as well and stuff like that. And it was really interesting at points, and, you know, there was times where I was really into it, but then I just don't think the audiobook worked at all. I think it would be much better to read it physically, and I think I don't really have any inclination to reread it at any point soon. But I think in the future at some point I probably will, and I think that when I do this I definitely will read it physically, because I do think it is a book that, you know, has a lot of merit and deserves a second chance, and I want to give it a second chance, but I just can't say that I enjoyed it at all, to be honest. So then I read something a bit more fun. I read the 3 books in the 50 Shades of Grey trilogy, which is 50 Shades Grey, 50 Shades Darker, and 50 Shades Freed. And these were so fun. Like, obviously they are quite badly written. I actually done a whole vlog where I talked about A Little Life and the second 2 50 Shades books, so definitely check that out. I'll have a link in the description. But yeah, if you are totally unaware, it is about this girl Anna who meets this rich billionaire Christian, or Mr. Grey, and they have this dark romance because he is, you know, really into BDSM and kinky stuff, and she is like so like not into that at all at first, but then she learns, and then he has a lot of trauma that he goes through, and he has to try and unpack, and then he takes it out on her, and it's very abusive, to be honest. It's very emotionally manipulative, it's very toxic, but it is so fun to read because, you know, they are fictional characters, and it's not trying to be a book about morals, it's just trying to be an entertaining, you know, roller coaster of a ride, and I did really love them, to be honest. There is a sequel trilogy, or not a sequel trilogy, so she rewrote all 3 books from Christian Grey's perspective because they're all from Anna's perspective, and I own the first one. I'm definitely going to read it at some point. I probably will read the other 2 at some point as well, but I just thought they were so fun. It's by E.L. James, also some respect to her, I didn't say her name. I just thought, like, it was fun, entertaining, and, you know, there was never a boring moment, I will say that. Like, it was a total roller coaster. I described it in my vlog as being like a soap opera, and that is what it was like. It was like drama, 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 like so many things happening one after the other where, like, they didn't have to, you know, like there could have been slower moments, but E.L. James was like, nah, there's gonna be this, there's gonna be this, there's gonna be guns, there's gonna be stalkers, there's gonna be helicopter crashes, there's gonna be arson, there's gonna be attempted murder, there's gonna be kidnapping, there's gonna be blah 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 blah, plus all the smut, obviously, and yeah, it was so fun. I would highly recommend it, to be honest. It was just fun. So finally, I'm going to talk about A Little Life, and this is a very controversial book, and I have a whole vlog mostly focused on A Little Life that, like I already said, will be linked in the description. But basically, I started off this book, I went into it with such a negative mindset because I've just heard so many things. I was like, there's so much to unpack in this story. It's about, you know, so much trauma and heartbreak and horrible situations. And I went into it, I was like, oh, I'm not going to like this. It's going to be a chore, blah, blah, blah. But then the more I read, the more invested I got. And by the end, I absolutely loved it. I do genuinely think this is a piece of art. And I know it's very controversial, and I know a lot of people really hate it, and I understand why. If you want to hear an opposing opinion, I will link Olivia Savannah's video down below because she makes really good points, and I do agree with her points. But I cannot deny that I just absolutely loved the book. I loved how it was structured. I loved how every event led into the next one. And the story is it's mostly about Jude. It's about 4 friends, but it's mostly focused on Jude. And he suffered some really traumatic events in his childhood. Like, this book, I am not really someone that, you know, cares about trigger warnings, but this book, or content warnings or whatever, but this book has like every dark subject ever in it. And a point that Olivia Savannah made out was that she found that it was just desaturating, or desensitizing, sorry, that by the time that she got to the end and there's just more bad things happening, she didn't care because there'd just been so much already that she didn't have the capacity to care anymore. But I was the opposite. I never cry ever at things in real life or books, movies, whatever. I'm not a crier. But I actually cry, like, properly. Like, sometimes I tear up, don't get me wrong, but like, I actually like had tears running down my face at the end of this book. Like, the last like 5-6 pages, I just was a blubbering mess. And, you know, a book that provokes that kind of reaction in you, I don't think you can discredit. And I just think that it was really beautiful. I didn't really explain it. I started to explain what it was and I went on a tangent. It's about Jude, and, you know, how he has these really traumatic events in his childhood, and it's about how these affect his whole life, both physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, his relationships with people, with family, with romantic relationships, friends, everything, like, all goes back to how his life started, and like I said, I think it was just like expertly crafted, and I know people will disagree with me, but I do think that it was really, really good. And yeah, I have a whole vlog talking about my opinions, so I'll have it linked down below if you want to check that out. But yeah, I really loved it. So I read a total of 5,143 pages in January, which I personally think is very impressive. I think it's my second best ever. I think January 2021 I read even more than that, but I was so amazed because one of my goals for 2022 is to stop being scared of bigger books, and a lot of these were big books, but I still managed to get through 11 books in January, and you know, that just proves that if you're really invested in a book, it doesn't matter how long it is, because you could just read and read and read. Like the last 200, 300 pages of A Little Life I read in like basically a sitting. I was obsessed. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, please subscribe, let me know your thoughts on any of these books in the comments. I know some of them are controversial, like A Little Life. If you've ever read Fathers and Sons, I would love to hear your opinion on it, or Pale Fire. I think those are the best ones for actual discussion. Well, no, A Little Life is as well, but you know what I mean. I'd love to hear your opinions because they're like a bit lesser known, but obviously still like classics. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next one.